plan the work. Academic projections. How many have ever done an academic projection? Raise your hand. All right, almost everybody. And so that's good. I want this time to be in a time of encouragement to keep on keeping on. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this time together. We just pray that everything would be done for your honor and glory. May we come away encouraged to help young people prepare themselves for graduation. We pray these things in thy name. Amen. So we're going to talk about plan the work. Work the plan, academic projections, and the last part of that is my name. Okay? So I am Mr. Wayne Musson. I use this verse to start the presentation. It says, "The simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going." Now, I want you to relate that to yourself. I want you to be the prudent man or woman. Okay? Now, when it gets to the his, and I know I'm taking some liberty here, but that his going, I want you to think about this. You be prudent in doing academic projections, and it will be well to the students going, the parents going, your going. Maybe you're the principal and you have a supervisor over that learning center, the supervisor's going, and your school testimonies going. All right? So that's what I want you to think about. What does it mean to be prudent? Seeing what is likely to happen and giving careful thought in planning and action. You know, you've heard of it. Young people do something and they say, I just didn't think about it. Oh, yes, they did. You can't do something without thinking about it first. Even though it might be just an instant, we do think about it. We, as we do academic projections, need to think about it. We need to do some planning so the student can do the acting. Wouldn't you like it if you could graduate somebody and it was all on paper and you never had to do anything, or they didn't have to do anything? Wouldn't that be nice? We can't do it that way. All right? We need to plan so that they can do the acting. They have to do the pace work. Academic projections toward graduation, APG. I'm going to use that, the initials there, APG, just because it takes up too much room in the PowerPoint to put down the whole title each time. What is an APG form? It's a year-by-year and course-by-course outline of what a high school student must complete to earn a diploma. This is their roadmap to get where they need to go. And we want to talk about that today. Also, that is the form. Some of you have seen that before. And if you don't have them, buy a package of them. You can't do it today, but you can buy a package of them and have that with you. This is the second page, the back side of that first page. And a very unique thing. I want to spend some time on this later on. Who needs an APG form? High school students. An upper level student working on PACE 1097 or above in the curriculum, or a vocational preparatory student age 16 or above. Now, a lot of times we just think about those high school students that are on level. They're on their level and we're going to do an APG form. No, you do it for all those high school students. In fact, some of your vocational students probably need it more than the young person that's right on schedule to graduate with college prep or whatever it is. So this could be a real blessing to them. What information is needed to complete the APG form? Now this is before you get with the parents and all that. What do you need? First of all, for new students, you need their high school records. If they're coming in 10th grade, you need to have their transcripts from the other high school. Diagnostic test results. By the way, don't be afraid to give diagnostic tests to high school students. I tell the story over and over again about one of my students years and years ago. He came to me in the middle of his junior year, sharp kid. He came to our school because he was in our church, and he loved the kids in our school and hung around with them, and he decided that's where he wanted to be. And so I didn't like taking students that late, but we did with him. He came in with 2 algebra credits from a quote-unquote prominent high school in the area, public school. One was Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. Boy, and I look at those things when I get those transcripts, I go, whoa, all right. You know, this guy's sharp. I gave him the test anyway, the diagnostic test. He tested out in 6th level. He couldn't do a fraction if his life depended on it, okay? And you can't do our Algebra 1 if you don't know fractions. You have to know how to use fractions to do our Algebra 1. And he was fine with that. He finished up through 96 in math and went on to college and all that type of thing. But don't be afraid to use that. Now, you may not have to use it for your 11th and 12th graders. If you understand their situation, you're more welcome not to use it for them. I know LCA, Lighthouse Christian Academy, part of A.C.E., they don't always make their students that come in 11th and 12th grade to take the diagnostic test. Oh, okay, I'm going to stop right there and put my plug in. All right, here's my plug for LCA, dual enrollment. Everybody understand what dual enrollment? Anybody not understand what dual enrollment is? All right, dual enrollment I think is very important. Not that I like why we have to have it, but I believe it's there, and it's going to be there for a long time. But dual enrollment allows your students to graduate with an accredited diploma. An accredited diploma. Now, a lot of schools give out both. They give out one from their school and one from LCA. But when they go on to college, even military these days, and trade schools, even some jobs are requiring an accredited diploma, a diploma from an accredited institution. And that's what you get when you have a diploma from Lighthouse Christian Academy. That's part of A.C.E. And dual enrollment is very important. Remember, you have to be on model or quality status. So make sure that you work towards that. I would encourage you to do that. Now you say, well, you know, we've just never done it that way before. And that's fine. But I'll tell you, who you're going to help is the students. When they graduate and they have that diploma, where they can get into military, where they can get into colleges, even some of the Christian colleges and universities, they want an accredited diploma. Do I believe that accreditation means everything? No, but it's here. It's here. And there's not a lot we can do about that. So just think on that, pray about that. That is a wonderful thing. Now, you've already missed the deadline if you haven't applied this year for your students, okay? That was October 15th. But think about it and pray about it for next year. Think about getting into that, and if you have any questions, talk to your rep. For all students, you need the high school graduation requirements, and we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. You need to know your state regulations or your requirements for graduation. Who are you hurting if you don't follow the requirements? The students. If they can't get into a college because you haven't, in state, maybe a community college, whatever it is, you're hurting them. Okay? So think about that. Know that. By the way, most of us have our requirements in our Christian school are higher than the state requirements. And I really believe that should be true. Because most of us, we have to have 2 years of Bible. You don't have that in public school. All right? So our standards should be higher, but you need to know what they present or want you to have. And then have the academic projection, and that's the form, of course. How about a pre academic projection towards graduation interview. Schedule a conference with the student and the parents. For new students, this could be your initial or your new student interview. Take time to deal with high school students, new students, with about this form. I believe it's very important. Explain the academic programs available in your school. Now, A.C.E. has 4, as you understand. The honors course of study. Let me tell you, if you haven't looked at that, that's a lot of work. And you wonder where you can look at that? It's in your procedures manual, page 76 on the old one, all right, the one that we're using as of last year. Okay, there's a brand new one coming out with all 90 character traits. But this is the older one. But 27 credits. Oh, I had the wrong page. It's on page 74. 27, that's a lot of work. A tremendous amount of work for a young person. So you need to tell them about that. College preparatory course of study. They need to understand what that is. Now, in our manual, procedures manual, it's going to encourage you to point students to that diploma. And that's good. But just remember, not everybody can do that. Not everybody can do that. Be careful with that. You have a student that comes in 9th grade and he can't do algebra. He's not going to get our high school diploma unless he goes 6 years, 7 years. And that's not bad if you can talk him into it. But that's very difficult. Took a school, and they were very adamant about being everybody on college prep. We got there. I started school. My first day was Thursday morning, my wife and I. And I found out I was the principal that day, and that was great. I found out I had parent orientation that night. School started on Monday. And I didn't know anybody. The kids, I didn't know any of them. And so we started on Monday, and we found out my wife's learning center was the high school learning center. I had the grade school learning center. And we found that there was 3 young people in her learning center that were failing and failing and failing. We could not figure it out. They were on college preparatory. They were on their grade level to graduate, but they were failing and failing and failing. Found out that, somebody wanted everybody to be on college prep. And so they put them in that program. They couldn't do it. 2 of those young people couldn't read. And you can't do our science in level 10 and level 8, 9 if you can't read. So be careful with how you use that. The general course of study, that looks easier, but it's not that much easier. There's still a lot of work. Make sure you understand that. Make sure the parents and student understand that. And then there's a vocational preparatory course of study. Now this is a program that I have used many times. Maybe I'm not supposed to admit that, but I've used it many times for young people that have come to me that were way behind. They couldn't do our upper level sciences because they couldn't do algebra. And they may never make it. It may be emotional problems, it may be physical problems in their lives. It might be a poor educational background. You ever heard of that? Yeah, they may have a poor educational background. You can use this. Now, I'm going to say this, that there's 2 philosophies about vocational preparatory course. One is that you give them a diploma. The young people that went through my schools, when they got a vocational, they got a vocational diploma. I did not put it on their graduation certificate, the diploma itself, but it was in their records, all right? If you do that, that's great. Some people only give out certificates, and that's where you need to know your state regulations, requirements for graduation. Some states are fussier about that than others, and they will say you can't give a vocational diploma. you can only give a certificate. And of course, if they get a certificate, they're not getting a diploma, they're going to have to take the GED. All right? And by the way, the GED is not what it used to be. It doesn't carry the influence that it used to carry. So be very careful about that. You may have to choose. You may need to look into your state requirements for graduation. Review completed high school credits. Go over that with the parents. By the way, sometimes, especially if you're a new student coming in from public school, and they've been in the public school and high school, mom and dad may have no idea what they're doing or we're doing. And you may not even have their transcripts by this time. Especially if this is your initial one, your interview, you may not have their transcripts because they haven't decided completely to be there. But you need to talk to them about that. Provide counsel and guidance. Now, this separates us from so many other institutions of education. Accelerated Christian education. Yes, a lot of our schools are small. But you know, when we deal with students, and parents, we need to counsel them and guide them. Now, I am a public school graduate. All right? Didn't learn to read. Okay, that's how I know I was a public school graduate. But when I was in high school, I don't even know if I knew my counselor. My parents never met with a school counselor. They had no idea who they were. My mom knew that I loved two subjects, lunch and PE. She had to wash my PE clothes every week, and she had to pack my lunch. That's what she knew. But they didn't understand what I was doing in school. They had no clue. Not that they were bad parents. They weren't given the information. They weren't counseled. They weren't guided. I wasn't even guided and counseled, but a few times in 4 years. We need to use this to help them. We need to use that. Maintaining the academic projections, and of course this is the work that you're going to be doing. As you sit down with all the information you have, you've talked to the parents the first time, complete the student information, and if you have SMS, as you put the information into your program, the SMS program with that student, it's going to automatically put the information into this program, okay, the APG. And so you won't even have to type it in on that form, but it will be there. Review the student's permanent records. Have that record in front of you so you can see exactly what that student has done. Determine the academic program, those 4 programs. You need to understand which program they're going to work on, which one they're going to graduate with. You need to make that decision. Right? Now, you can get counsel from mom and dad, and you can get some help from the student, and you're going to get a lot of help from their records, even though if they're coming from public school, it may be a little tough to figure that out. But you need to determine that. That is your job. By the way, let me just say this. We're going to talk about another interview in just a minute. Don't do the work in front of the parents and student. Don't call them in and start filling out the forms. It needs to be done before they walk in, before you even make them the interview time, the conference time. You do it ahead of time. Professionalism, all right? Now, we're looking at the form. We're thinking about the form. First of all, use a pen for the past courses completed column. Fill in the high school credits completed, and then record the number of credits earned. And that's what it's going to look like. Now, that should be in pen. Each time you go to that column, it should be in pen. The only part that should be penciled is the bottom number, the total. You want that in pencil so you can erase it and add the next year's credits in that. If you do it in pen, especially if you're doing the paper the paper, using the paper product, I'll just tell you, whiteout can only get so deep before you cannot write on it anymore. Anybody a witness to that? All right, yeah, it can only go so far. So save you some problems. I'll just do it this way. Now we're going to go to that middle column. Use a pencil for the PACES projected this year column. Write in courses for current school year. Fill in the number of each PACE, and that's what that's going to look like. Now, if you're using the paper product, and by the way, I like to use paper just to have it in front of me instead of doing all this all the time. It's not a bad idea. If you're going to use this, the form here, don't try to put in all four numbers, 1097, 1098. It's going to look like a smear across there if you're like like me. I could hardly get 3 numbers in some of those squares there. They're just tiny. So, just put 97, 98, up 100, 101. And then just tell the parents, okay, I just didn't put the 1 in front of it, and they'll understand. The third column to the right is use a pencil for the course remaining for graduation column. Complete list of remaining courses, the ones that they're not doing this year, but they need to do next year or the year after, depending on the student's grade level or our grade level. Tally the total credits to be completed, and that's what that would look like on that last column. Now we're going to get to that second page, the back side. Use a pencil for the academic progress towards graduation form. Back, and this is the back of that form, okay? I'll just say it that way. Write actual PACE numbers in each box. And again, this is real meticulous and tiresome. That's why you do not want to do this in front of the parents. Number one, every time you look up, you'll be cross-eyed, and that's not good. And they'll wonder, okay, where have you been? So you want to do that. Cross out the number of PACES as completed. Just put a line through it. And that's what that would look like, that form. Hopefully neater than that, because that's my writing. But make it as neat as you can. But we want to learn to use this form. Now, I just want to explain something so that you don't go away confused. You notice at the bottom of the first column, there are no PACE numbers in Spanish 1. Everybody see that? And you're thinking, oh, you just got tired and you didn't want to do it. I didn't want to put all those numbers in, but that's the way it is here. Okay, and I just fill it out. And I was called in on that, and the people in quality control called me in and says, Mr. Musson, you have not finished the bottom here. You need your PACE numbers in there. Well, I said, no, I followed the instructions here, and that's what we have there. And we started looking at it and realized that when this form was done in the procedures manual, we were working with Rosetta Stone. Remember that? A lot of you use Rosetta Stone. Maybe some of you still do, but we don't use it as much. It's hard to get through schools, all right? Rosetta Stone, you can't get it through us. But Rosetta Stone, we were using that because we only had 1 year of foreign language in French and Spanish. And many diplomas, in fact, college prep and your honors, you have to have 2 of the same language. And a lot of colleges are demanding that on your transcripts. And so we just put a line through that because that meant they finished the first year of Rosetta Stone. All right? And if you're going to use PACES, you're going to fill that in. But I just didn't want you to think that I was just lazy and didn't want to do it. But that is what that is all about, just so that I give you that for your own information. But that's what you're going to fill out. And again, this student has already finished 9th grade. They're going into 10th grade or 10th level in our curriculum. And they've already marked off, you have marked off as such, The pace is already finished. Uses a long-range goal card for students. I love this. I love this. My wife and I are, when we're running a learning center, we're working in a learning center, we are very meticulous about a lot of things. And one of those things is student progress charts. I call them the star charts. All right? Nobody puts their own name up there, scribbles it in there. We do that, whether with a computer or my wife uses calligraphy and knows calligraphy, and she would do them. Very nice. I didn't want a thumbprint on my, well, I'm selfish there, on their progress chart. When I brought people through, all my charts were in the same spot on their bulletin board in their office, and they were to be beautiful, clean, all right? Nobody was allowed to write on that chart. And so when you get a high school student, they can see stars, but they might not think numbers, okay, 1097, 1098, all that type of thing. This is a great tool to use for that student. Allow them to have one of them, and I'm going to, it will come up again in the presentation. But use as a long-range goal card for that student. You have one, they have one. By the way, you're going to give them to some students and you'll never see that form again. In fact, they won't even be able to find it. You have students like that. You put it in, give it to them and it's gone. All right, they eat it, they play with it, they tear it up, they throw it with the other trash. You know, but then you're going to have some students that are meticulous about keeping that. They might even put it up in their office for a high school student. And as they finish a pace, they put a line through it so that they know where they're at. Because on the star chart, like I said, or the progress chart, we didn't allow them to mark those numbers up there. If you do, that's fine. I just did not like that. I wanted them to be beautiful. So, use as a long-range goal card. And some of your students are going to love it. My dad started a Christian school in 1976 using A.C.E. All right? I started working with him that year. He got me to work with him, okay, because he lost a supervisor in October. She had to move because her husband got transferred. And my dad wouldn't let her stay and work under a contract with the school. He just kind of ripped it up and says, you have to go with your husband. And boy, was she relieved. And guess who was without a job at that moment in time in history? Me. And I'd finished college, and I was working 2 full-time jobs, 16 to 18 hours a day, trying to pay off my school bill. And so I got that done, and the Lord just took all other jobs and opportunities away. And my dad shows up and says, I need you as supervisor. And of course he showed up in his house because that's where I was living, trying to pay off my bills. And he says, I need you to be a supervisor. Would you consider that? And then I didn't even want to consider it. And the Lord just took everything else away. And I finally decided maybe on a Thursday that I would do it. By Monday, I was doing training, supervisor training in October. Imagine that, in Lincoln, Illinois, 1976. That's unheard of, doing one in the middle of October. But I was there. I was the last one to get in. Okay? What a blessing. I went there. My college did not like A.C.E. It was too new. It wasn't, teacher and blackboard-based type thing. We didn't have whiteboards back then. But, it was all chalkboard. They didn't like that. And so I didn't know anything about it. And I was working 2 jobs. I didn't know anything about my dad's school that he was working on. They were building offices in the gymnasium there, and I didn't even know what they were doing because I wasn't around enough. I was working 7 days a week. But I had some students that would have used this as a blessing. And of course, this did not come out, this form did not come out until about 1993, is the first record we have of using them. And so I started way before we had that, but I would have had some students that would have loved this to help them. Review and update annually. Make sure that you keep these up to date. You need to have one, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Parent, student, staff, advisor, APG conference. Now, this may be the second time you meet with a new student. They decide they're going to come now. Now you need to have another interview, and especially for high schoolers, you need to have this ready to go. You're going to present what they need to do for graduation. Explain and discuss it. Now, let's say you have a student that is now in 9th grade, 9th level. And they've come up through your school, and they are the oldest. In this conference, you need to explain what an APG is to mom and dad. They may have no clue because you don't teach them what an APG is in your, parent conferences and things like that. So take time to deal with this. Have it all filled out for that student, for the parents, and explain it to them. If their background is public school, they've never seen anything like it. So it will be a help. Ask the parents to sign the APG. What is a signature worth today? Very little. Really, nothing. They can break a contract. People can do that anytime. This is not a contract. But what you need to do is have their signature on it in case there's something down the road that happens and they come and says, I didn't know he had to do that. Well, you can show that. And that's why you need to be very thorough about going through it. Thorough. So they know, and then have them sign it. Give a copy of page 2 to the student. And that's what I was talking about. I love this idea. I had a student back in the, it'd be the 90s. And he was Mr. Meticulous. He had been with our Christian school. He started in kindergarten, and he and his best friend were our first graduates from K through 12 in our Christian school. And this young man, diligent, young man that studied hard, he worked hard. He was a sharp young man, athletic, musical. In fact, today he has a bachelor's degree, 2 master's degree, and his doctorate degree, okay, in music, and teaches in a Christian college in music. And he was always a blessing to us. But if I would have had those in those days, this projection form, especially the backside, it would have been on his bulletin board, and he would have had it marked off. And I know his mom would have made me make a copy of it and have it in her house. My dad and mom, even though they were part of our Christian school, my mom had all of my little brother's congratulations slips on the refrigerator all the time. Even though she was the school secretary, they were there. And she would have had one of those. He graduated way before this started, but she would have had that on her refrigerator, and she would have been marking them off. They can be a blessing to you. So give a copy. And if you need to, give a copy to the parents. Give a copy to the parents. By the way, I'm just going to throw this in. This is not in the procedures manual, but one of the men that was in one of my workshops came up to me and said, you know what we do? We actually do the second page for some of our grade school students. They love it because they're not allowed to put their numbers up on, their PACE numbers up on their progress chart there. And he says that they do it, and their kids really like to do that. That's up to you. You can do that or think about it, but do it for the high school students. Pray together for God's guidance and blessing. For new students coming in all their background is public school, they have no idea what God's guidance and blessing is in education. You can be the person that introduces them maybe to the Savior, if you allow people from the outside to come in, but you also can show people that God wants to guide them and wants to be their blessing. And this form, I believe, should be a blessing to every student and every parent. Supervisor's use of the APG. What does a supervisor need to have this for? Why? It needs to be updated greatly, or how they're going to use it, this needs to be updated regularly. Revise as needed based on the student's performance. You need to keep track. You need to use this to help. Keep in your permanent files. Keep it in there. Make sure that you have it there. Don't put it in the back, put it in the front. Keep track. You know that Johnny just took a social studies test. All right, pull it out, mark that off. What's it going to take you? A couple seconds? And then every once in a while, use it. Meet with that student regularly to go over that, especially those who are struggling. Yeah, well, maybe not even that. Maybe the ones that are just doing great or even flying towards graduation. It can be a blessing to them as they do that. But meet with them. Have your form all done. And maybe you need to help them catch up. But have it done so that they can see it. Rejoice with the student as progress is made. So, with apologies to Mrs. Howard and all of A.C.E. Product Advancement, I have decided to rename this form. Okay? This form should be renamed the Musson version. Okay? Musson version, nobody else's. The rejoicing form. Application, whatever you want to call it. The academic projection towards, but put rejoicing in there. All right? I want you to use that to help students, to help parents. So we get back to this page. Plan the work. Work the plan. By the way, really, things don't get done unless there's some planning to it. I don't know how many of you ever tried to pack your car by just throwing stuff in it, going on a big vacation. In our house, we had 5 children when I was growing up. And when my dad packed a car to go on vacation with 5 kids and mom and dad, there was some planning. And I think I learned a lot from my dad, that everything had to have a place, and every place had to have a thing, you know. So planning is good. And in your school ministry, you need to plan the work so that it can be done. You can't do the work for the student. Everybody understand that? Now, I know there are some people that think they can, all right? And I've seen some illustrations of that. But you can't do it for them if you're doing it right. They have to do it. But they need to have a roadmap as such. Something that they can follow to finish the course. Now, men, some of us have a problem with following instructions. You've heard of this, brother. You've heard of this, okay? That some of us have, we usually like to have our wife with the map. Now it's a GPS. I still have my wife with the GPS on her phone when we're going someplace, because my wife can tell me where to go, and I won't get there. I'll take a left when I was supposed to take a right, because my mind is always thinking about driving or something else. We need to have plans to get where we're going, or that student is going. Like I said, let this form be a blessing. Don't take it lightly. If you haven't been using it, get back to it. If you are using it, keep on keeping on. Keep doing the good work because your students need it. Parents need it. The testimony of your school needs this. And then we'll all give God the glory. Isn't it fun when they walk across that platform to get their diploma? I love graduations. I really do. I get excited. Sometimes it's just to get rid of it. You didn't hear that from me. But there are some kids that I don't want to let go. You know, you try to trip them on the way across the platform, and so that they can't get their diploma, so they'll come back the next year. But hey, it's great when they finish the course. And that's what we want. That would be God's plan, I believe, that they finish the course. And we can be an instrument. This form, the use of this form can be an instrument to accomplish that. Please use it. Be a blessing. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you again for this time. Lord, I pray that we be encouraged to keep on keeping on, doing the right things, planning the work. Kids that I don't want to let, pray these things planning the work. Amen.